They never wanted you to realize your value. That's why they treated you the way they did. That's why they talked to you the way they did. That's why they dismissed you. That's why they overlooked you. That's why they took you for granted. That's why they kept crossing your boundaries. That's why they expected you to keep forgiving, keep understanding, keep giving, keep staying, and keep trying. Because people who benefit from your self-doubt rarely want you to discover your self-worth. They don't. And if you've ever looked back over a relationship, a friendship, a family situation, a job, or any environment and thought, why did I put up with that for so long? Why did I keep giving to people who weren't giving back? Why did I keep trying to prove myself? This conversation is for you. Because the truth is, a lot of people never wanted you to realize your value. Because the moment you realize your value, everything changes. The moment you realize your value, you stop accepting crumbs and calling it love. The moment you realize your value, you stop chasing people who keep showing you they don't want to be caught. The moment you realize your value, you stop explaining yourself to people who already decided not to understand you. The moment you realize your value, you stop betraying yourself just to keep somebody else comfortable. And that's exactly why your growth became a problem. Think about it. Why did people suddenly call you selfish? Why did people suddenly call you different? Why did they suddenly say you changed? Why did they suddenly make it seem like you were the problem? Because the version of you they benefited from started disappearing. The version of you that overgave. The version of you that over-explained. The version of you that tolerated disrespect. The version of you that kept choosing everybody else over yourself. That version of you started dying, and they didn't like it. Because if you knew your value back then, would you have accepted some of the things you accepted? Probably not. If you knew your value back then, would you have tolerated being talked to that way? Probably not. If you knew your value back then, would you have stayed in some of the situations as long as you did? Probably not. And I know some people don't like hearing that, but this isn't about blaming yourself. This is about understanding yourself. Because a lot of us didn't stay because we were weak. A lot of us stayed because we loved. A lot of us stayed because we had hope. A lot of us stayed because we believed that people could change. A lot of us stayed because we didn't yet understand our own worth. There's a difference. And that's why I think so many people carry shame about their past. They look back and think, I should have known better. I should have left sooner. I should have seen the signs. Maybe. But maybe you also needed those experiences to become who you are now. Maybe you needed to experience what it feels like to be undervalued so you would never undervalue yourself again. Maybe you needed to experience what it feels like to be taken for granted so you would stop taking yourself for granted. Maybe you needed to experience what it feels like to lose yourself so you would understand the importance of finding yourself. Because one thing life has taught me is this: pain has a way of introducing you to yourself. And sometimes the people who hurt you the most accidentally become the people who wake you up. Not because what they did was right, not because what happened was fair, but because the experience forced you to ask questions you had never asked before. Who am I? What do I deserve? What will I never tolerate again? Why did I think this was love? Why did I think I had to earn basic respect? Why did I keep abandoning myself? Those are powerful questions because the answer to those questions change your future. There's a proverb that says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And whether you understand that spiritually, psychologically, philosophically, or simply through your own life experience, the principle remains the same. The way you see yourself shapes the life that you create. If you believe you have no value, you'll settle. If you believe your worth depends on other people, you'll chase validation. If you believe you have to earn love, you'll keep overgiving. But when you begin changing the way you see yourself, your entire life starts changing. And honestly, this became one of the reasons I wrote Phoenix from Stability to Power, because so many people aren't trying to become somebody new. They're trying to remember who they were before they learned to abandon themselves. They're trying to remember what confidence feels like, what self-respect feels like, what trusting yourself feels like, what personal power feels like. Because eventually something shifts. Eventually you stop asking, why didn't they value me? And you start asking, why didn't I value myself enough to walk away sooner? Not from a place of shame either. Not from a place of beating yourself up. From a place of understanding, because understanding creates freedom, and freedom creates change. And maybe that's the biggest thing they never wanted. Maybe they never wanted you to realize your value because your value changed the entire dynamic. Your value made you stop chasing. Your value made you stop begging. Your value made you stop shrinking. Your value made you start saying no. Your value made you start protecting your peace. Your value made you start choosing yourself. And the people who benefited from the old version of you were never going to celebrate that. They expected you to stay hurt. They expected you to stay confused. They expected you to keep doubting yourself. They expected you to keep looking outside of yourself for answers. They expected you to keep accepting less than you deserved. They expected you to stay the version of yourself that they benefited from. They never expected you to wake up. They never expected you to realize your worth. They never expected you to trust yourself. And they never expected you to choose yourself. They never expected you to become unavailable to the things that once hurt you. And honestly, maybe there was a time when you didn't expect that either. But look at you. You're still here. You're still standing. You're still learning. You're still growing. You're still becoming. And maybe that's the real lesson. See, the people who couldn't see your value were never responsible for defining it. You were. You always were. And maybe the greatest act of self-love isn't getting the people who hurt you to finally understand your worth. Maybe it's finally understanding it yourself. Because once you do, you stop begging. You stop proving. You stop explaining. You stop shrinking. You stop abandoning yourself. And you start building a life that reflects what you finally know to be true. You were valuable all along. You just needed life to reveal it to you. And if you're in the middle of this right now, if you're still grieving, still confused, still trying to understand what happened, give yourself grace. You're learning. You're waking up. You're becoming. And if you're looking back on a season of your life and finally understanding it differently, then maybe that's your proof that you didn't go through all of that for nothing. Maybe it was preparing you to become someone who would never settle for less than they deserve again. Because that's what happens when you realize your value. Everything changes. Peace, blessings, love, and power.